London, the UK's capital, is famous for its deep-rooted past and a hefty economy worth over $500 billion. The city has been a global money center for years, known for its high-end services and good pay. But this wealth hides a growing problem. By 2023, homelessness in the city has gone up by 50% in 10 years, affecting more than 1 in 50 people. Real wages haven't grown for over 15 years, while living costs, especially housing, have shot up. These issues are causing many to leave the UK. A young professional in New York can earn almost twice as much as in London, even with higher living costs. This gap has pushed many young British workers, especially in the National Health Service, to look for better jobs abroad due to low pay and tough working conditions. Oddly, as Brits leave, more people are moving to the UK, creating a complex job market. The UK has long drawn immigrants, thanks to its respected schools, but a 2015 study shows a worrying trend. Those leaving the UK often have more skills than those coming in. This has led to more lower-skilled workers, possibly hurting productivity and lowering the quality of goods and services. Despite seeming rich, Britain is losing many talented young workers due to worsening living conditions. Without London, British living standards would drop by 14%, similar to Mississippi, the poorest US state. Data suggests the UK's best days are over. In the UK, the richest live very well, ranking 5th globally, but the average household ranks 12th, and the poorest 5% rank 15th. Last year, the poorest UK households lived 20% worse than their Slovenian counterparts. This odd situation happens because while more people move to the UK public services and the pool of skilled workers are shrinking, let's explore why. One of the world's wealthiest nations faces a dilemma, prompting many to consider leaving. Not long ago, the UK was a thriving hub, attracting young, skilled professionals. Many Brits share this view, with 60% believing life was better in the 90s and 2000s. This era is fondly remembered for British music's global success, with bands like Oasis and the Spice Girls and the Cool Britannia trend. The Cold War's end also boosted global optimism. While people often idealize the past, the 90s were indeed a time of economic success for Britain. Despite a rocky start with the crisis and a recession, the country entered a period of remarkable economic stability. From 1992 onwards, Britain enjoyed its longest stretch of uninterrupted growth since World War II, dubbed the Long Expansion. This growth stemmed from structural changes, effective money policies, and favorable global conditions, marked by steady GDP growth and productivity gains. The financial sector played a crucial role, with increased lending, especially in real estate, boosting spending and investment. Regulatory changes attracted investment, maintaining a positive net foreign income balance. However, the shift to service-based jobs didn't fully replace those lost in heavy industry and mining, hurting the country's poorest areas. By the mid-2000s, problems surfaced, and the 2008 financial crisis exposed the over-reliance on financial services and lack of investment in other key sectors of the British economy. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video. It would mean a lot to us. Now, today, the UK faces major issues, including an overwhelmed National Health Service, a housing affordability crisis, and aging infrastructure. The housing shortage is particularly severe, driven by strict zoning laws, limited public housing funds, and economic priorities that have neglected residential construction. This has made home ownership increasingly out of reach for many, especially first-time buyers without high incomes or family support. Over the years, insufficient housing construction has created a big gap between supply and demand in the housing market. This issue stems from past policies. In the 1970s, the Right to Buy scheme let social housing tenants purchase their homes at a discount. While this policy offered ownership to those who previously couldn't afford it, it also reduced social housing units by about 25% while the population kept growing. The shortage of social housing has pushed more people into private rentals, driving up demand and prices due to limited supply. This shift has hit low-income earners the hardest, narrowing their housing options and forcing them to compete for affordable places to live. Home prices have outpaced real wage growth, widening the gap between homeowners and renters. The UK faces a particularly acute housing crunch, with 1.4 million fewer social housing units since 1980. This has led to more overcrowding in both private and social sectors, increasing the risk of homelessness for many, though this isn't always visible to the public. The number of English households in temporary housing has more than doubled from 2010 to 2023, reaching a record high. These living conditions are often poor, with common issues like damp, mold, and pests affecting job and school stability. This hinders social mobility and costs councils more, with nearly £1.8 billion spent on emergency housing last year. The root causes are the housing shortage, declining social housing, lack of support for market rents, Young people are especially affected by these housing market issues. Many older people own second homes, while young adults are less likely to own and more likely to rent. This shift reflects broader economic trends where stagnant wages contrast with rising asset values, worsening wealth gaps. Slow economic growth also limits career advancement, affecting early career earnings. In the UK, the expectation of earning more than one's parents has declined. Those born in the 1980s are earning less in their 30s than the previous generation did. Unable to buy homes and facing lower wages, some British talent is leaving for better opportunities in countries like the US, Australia, and New Zealand. The UK's wage stagnation is largely due to declining productivity, which measures how efficiently goods and services are produced. Since the 2008 financial crisis, productivity growth has stalled with a significant drop in investment. UK companies have invested 20% less than their counterparts in other countries, leading to outdated technologies, less innovation, and skill shortages. National Health Service (NHS), cornerstone of British society since 1948, provided free healthcare for over 70 years. However, in recent times, it faces growing challenges. Rising costs and declining treatment quality have become major concerns, largely due to an aging population and increased demand for health services. Despite higher taxes, the NHS and other public services are struggling more than ever before. The waiting list for NHS treatment has more than doubled since 2004, now standing at 7.4 million people. Even with significant increases in funding and staff since 2019, patients with serious health issues in the UK have lower survival rates compared to other developed nations. This is despite an 11% real terms increase in NHS funding since October 20, 2019, and a rise in the number of doctors and nurses. The root of the problem lies in healthcare inflation. While the NHS has received more funding and staff, costs continue to rise due to various factors. An aging population requires more medical care. New technologies and treatments are expensive. Drug prices are increasing, and public expectations for care quality are higher. Additionally, rising staff salaries contribute to overall cost increases. These factors make it difficult for the NHS to improve services and outcomes, even with additional resources. The challenges facing the NHS reflect broader issues in UK public projects. New initiatives often prove more difficult and costly to implement than in other countries. A prime example is HS2, a proposed high-speed rail network to connect northern and southern England. Conceived in 2009, construction only began in 2020, with estimated costs ballooning from £37 billion to over £100 billion. This project highlights the inefficiencies and delays that plague large-scale public initiatives in the UK. The project was scrapped in 2023. Brexit stands out as a key factor, worsening many of the UK's existing problems. The impacts of Brexit are complex and could fill a separate discussion. The 2016 decision by British voters to exit the European Union has clearly hurt the UK, mainly by reducing trade with its primary partner, the EU. Yet, Brexit isn't the only cause of the UK's economic downturn. Many issues the UK faces also exist in other European economies, though to a lesser degree. The current brain drain crisis in the UK stems from various reasons, including people seeking fresh opportunities and better living standards. Looking back at the country's favorite era, the 1990s focus on quick economic gains often neglected long-term planning and infrastructure investment. While privatization was meant to bring in money for infrastructure improvements, it often led to underinvestment. Private companies prioritized profit maximization over long-term upgrades. Now the UK is facing the consequences, and even with an upcoming general election, improvements seem unlikely for several years to come. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe and like the channel.